Hello and welcome to the Gooner Tool, back again with you guys for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, a show in which we react to the latest Arsenal fixture, and we've turned these solo shows into a bit of a group effort. And today's show, I'm very, very happy to be joined by some faces both familiar and nostalgic this evening. Looking forward to bringing back an old favourite. But first of all, let's welcome Dan Potts. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Hello, bruv. Yeah, I'm all good. Tom, absolute pleasure as always. Thanks for having me on, mate, and looking forward to the show as always, bruv.
Absolutely. No, smashing it. Did you have a good New Year's? Did that go well?
Loved it, mate. Loved it. I had a chilled New Year's. Christmas was a bit mad. My niece and nephew are 5 and 3, so it's the wrong age really for kids to look calm. They're just mad. It's just mad,
Yeah.
overwhelming for them. But my New Year's Eve was chilled, helped by a nice little football match beating Brighton 4-2. So I enjoyed myself, bruv. Thank you very much. I hope you did too.
Yeah, no, it was New Year's Eve was interesting because I was at the Amex drive home, only car on the M25, which is a weird experience, when you're driving back at about 11 o'clock at night. It is bizarre, but it was, it was nice and clear and got back swiftly enough. So happy days. Also joined by my former colleague from the Arsenal way. It's Guy. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Good evening. Yeah, I'm on tenterhooks. Did you make it back for midnight for the celebrations?
Yeah, I did. I got back and everybody was, I was basically got through the door and was like, just give me a beer. Someone give me a beer now. And I've really been cutting down on the beers, but I was like, I've worked New Year's Eve. I've worked Boxing Day. I need a beer. I was off the day after, so it was all happy days after that. But yes, I did. How was yours?
Yeah, good. Like Dan, enjoyed the Arsenal feet up, and by the end there was a few hairy moments, wasn't there? Dicing with danger, but we got through it, and then able to welcome in the new year in the best possible way. Arsenal top of the league. Who'd have thought?
Indeed. Feet were not up for me at all come the end of that game. They were very much edge of the seats, just willing the whistle to go, but thankfully did get it over the line. And making up our complete cast today, he's got more Twitter accounts suspended than he has followers. It's Wayne. How you doing? You good, Joel, mate? Are you there, Wayne? Or have you lost connection? I think there might be a delay, to be fair. Are you there? Or have we lost him? This is classic, like, back in the day internet. Yeah, your internet is a bit dodgy, Wayne. You might need to just come back in or go out and come back in. That might be the way to fix it. It was fine a second ago, so I don't know what's happened. But you might need to just reset and come back. You're here. You're just a bit fuzzy. We'll try and get Wayne back shortly, but it's looking a bit fuzzy at the moment, Wayne. You might want to reset and come back in. It was fine a second ago, so I don't really know what's happened there. Thanks, everybody, joining us in the chat box. Craig, thank you so much for the kind donation. Good afternoon, gentlemen, from Fort Lauderdale Gooners. Hope you guys are doing good and well. Thank you so much for joining us, fella. Thank you, everybody that's joining us as well in the chat box and joined really early on. I can see people joining at 4:10 in the afternoon before we went live to drop in nice comments, so thank you for that. Much appreciate it. Let's get your raw reaction, Dan, to yesterday's 0-0 draw with Newcastle. Off you go.
Well, I did something crazy, Tom. I predicted a 3-2 Arsenal win because I had the opinion that Newcastle would come to the Emirates and give us a go. And maybe that was foolish. I think the hype of Newcastle this season has been justified in parts, but what I didn't expect was then to try to park the bus and try to time waste, fall on the floor, just hack us. And it's funny because I was on with Matisse the other night and he said, what has a team done so far to try and do something different to Arsenal? And I nearly said hack us. I nearly said kick us off the park and hack us. That's what hasn't been done yet. And that's what Newcastle tried to do. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Newcastle and sound like I'm being a crybaby here when I say this, but I expected them to come and try and play football. And they didn't. Now, I've got nothing against that because we've seen teams do that to us before. So I suppose I was a little shocked that they did that. In the 27th minute, I see him time wasting, and I thought, it's going to be one of them. Okay, it's going to be one of those games. They're going to take the point. Fair play to them. Their game plan worked. They got the point that I feel that they come to collect. Some Newcastle fans will think that's harsh, me saying that, and think that they could have won the game. Yeah, they could have won the game. So could Arsenal. Did try and play football, and they didn't, from what I could see. Now, they're defensively very, very good, and we found it very hard to break them down. But the one really obvious for me, Tom, was our bench is so weak, mate. And when you've got a manager who doesn't trust Marquinhos or Vieira to come on because the drop-off is so much, that is for me saying, look, I'm trying here, but you're going to have to give me something in January because I ain't got anything here to win us a game. And when it's 0-0 at Newcastle and you're looking for that guy to bring on and you don't have it, we're just lucky here and open, and I just hope that we do something, because for me, when you're going to have teams that are now looking at that approach and thinking, okay, they got something at the Emirates there, we're going to have to come and make sure that we can take the 3 points and not just the one. Having said that, Tom, I will say that if you can't win a game, then don't lose it, and that's exactly what we did. We balanced in our play, and we managed to keep them out as well. Having said that, I don't think they've really peppered our goal too much. I don't remember Ramsdale making too many the stats. I think they only had one on target. So they certainly came with a game plan that worked, and they'll take the 0-0 and be happy. And the celebrations at the end suggested from their fans and their players that that's exactly what they wanted, and they got exactly what they wanted. But 8 points clear, mate, and let's see what happens for the rest of the games, bro.
Yeah, we'll see if it's 8 points come Thursday evening. Of course, Man City play Chelsea. It's going to be an interesting game. They've got a really difficult period actually this winter. They go up against Man United just like us, and it'll be an intriguing kind of barometer of where Man United have grown in these last 8 games, of which they picked up, I think, 7 or even 8 in the last 9, maybe 8 in the last 9 wins. It's something like that. So, Ten Hag's really turned it around for them, and then they play us. So, very interesting indeed about how that's going to turn out and how the kind of table will look, I think, come the end of this month. That's going to be important going into that game against Manchester City. Have we been able to kind of keep enough of a buffer to make sure that we can go into that game against City knowing that the result is not unimportant, but certainly was going to have as less of an effect on the table as it possibly could. Guy, coming to you, mate. Your raw reactions from yesterday's draw. Off you go.
Yeah, I think it was one of those where we're not going to win every home game. And I think sort of what Dan said there, in terms of Newcastle, they went to Liverpool and they did something very similar from the first minute. Effectively, as much as they're third in the table, the reason Newcastle are there, and a lot's been said about it, is because Eddie Howe has effectively coached a very poor side from last season, made some key upgrades. The likes of Trippier, Pope, and Bruno Guimaraes have come into the side, but therefore they don't just play with abandon, and they don't just open up and go everywhere and play swashbuckling football. Eventually for Newcastle, that may well come, but they've been working with what they've got. They dig in and they do what they do. I mean, it was in terms of what Dan said there as well, it's the first time this season in which obviously we haven't won a home league game, where equally the blueprint was there. Start very, very fast, which we did, but we didn't get the breakthrough against Spurs. I know it wasn't sort of an early goal, but we did get the first goal in the game midway through the first half, and from there we can then really assert ourselves and boss the game. Against Liverpool, we scored in the first minute. We didn't quite find that breakthrough against Newcastle, and then as time went on, we eventually, second half, needed something from the bench. I don't think taking Nketiah off would have been the answer, but adding someone extra into the mix to just load the penalty area, really, and try and find that breakthrough. I mean, Dan mentioned there about Fabio Vieira. I too was sort of sat there thinking, this is surely a game where he's going to come on, and he's flattered to deceive in a number of sort of the Europa League games where he's perhaps played with some of the second string players, but when he's been slotted into that first 11, like he was at Brentford away, he's looked really impressive at times. And I thought, actually, is it time for him to just come into the side and see if he can be the player to unlock it? Equally, were we missing someone to unlock a defence? I don't think we were. We had Zinchenko. Xhaka was picking up decent positions, so too Ødegaard. It was just someone to be there to get on the end of something. Eddie tried his best, had a shot well saved by Nick Pope, but at the end of the day, give Newcastle their credit as well. It's probably the kind of away performance for near on a decade, if not a decade. We've sort of been crying out for Arsenal to go away to a big side and put in, dig in, batten down the hatches, and get out with a point. We've not done it on a number of occasions. We've been schooled. They came and they got their point, and we move on. 8 clear as it stands. Let's see where we are come the end of the week.
Yeah, we'll see where we are at the end of the week. But I think you summed it up really well, in particular, kind of the areas of what we were lacking up top. And we'll talk about transfers in this show, because you can't avoid not talking about transfers at the moment with everything that's going on. Wayne, I know that we may have lost video, but are we going for audio only? Can we hear you there? Have we got you? I'm gonna guess no.
Can you hear me now?
Reactions. Oh, I can. Hold on, I can hear you. There might be a delay though.
Massive delay. I literally this has been working just fine and before just fine. As soon as it's dropped off a cliff here.
Right. Well, I don't know if we can muddle through your raw reactions, and then maybe you need to reset the router. But I did hear you, and there was probably about a 3-second delay. So maybe you can get your reactions to the Newcastle game and then reset your router. That might be the way forward.
Yeah, one of the only games of the season where I've actually been physically angry throughout a game. Like it was
I think we're going to have to
tough
lose
watch.
him, unfortunately. I'm really sorry, Wayne. You keep cutting out. I'd say reset the router and come back, but it's like he's coming through a cushion. That's like speaking through a cushion at the moment.
It was crystal clear before we started.
He was fine. Like, I don't
bizarre,
get it. It's so strange. I've never seen that happen. We were saying for people listening, we were talking with Wade just before we came on. Don't know what's happened there. But really, really strange. Let's go into some of the finer details. Now, you said at the start in your reaction, Dan, that Newcastle came to basically play a certain type of game. Arteta said in his post-game interview that he felt that we made them play that way, that they haven't had to play that way all season. I disagree with him. I think that Newcastle came to play the way that they did, and it worked. And I liked what Guy said about, when we've gone to, say, Liverpool or Man City, and we, maybe had been better off trying to do what Newcastle did to come away with a better result than we have done with the 4 and 5-0 drubbings we've received in the past. Is this a lesson learned? And also importantly, is this maybe a blueprint for other teams that might visit the Emirates later on in the season?
Well, I think that's the worry, Tom. As I mentioned, that other teams are going to look at that now and think, well, that's how you play against Arsenal to pick up something. I'm not naive enough to think that Newcastle believed that they would be able to last the 90 minutes playing that style of football and thought that they'd be able to beat us. But I thought they would have at least come and had a bit of a go. And maybe 5 minutes or so, we saw that and we were opening them up a bit and we should have scored, in my opinion. In the first 5 to 8 minutes, we looked really good. And then I think they just reverted to what they probably thought was the best way to deal with us. And defensively, we need to give them credit, not just this game, this season. They've only conceded 11 goals. They definitely look, in my opinion, very solid and defensively sound. And I think, we saw a couple of chances for Arsenal, but nothing really clear cut other than Eddie. We had a header from Gabriel that went wide, and some would say that there's a couple of other chances we could have done better with. But for me, there was nothing clear cut other than Eddie that I thought, wow, how's he missed that? Really, there's nothing really there that I thought, wow, it should be 3 or 4 here now. So they kept us quiet and they nullified everything that we tried to do. And unfortunately, we didn't have an answer for that. And I truly believe that's not because the manager didn't know what he was doing. I actually believe it's because we haven't got anything from the bench to try and change it. I mean, people would say, well, what's the manager doing? Well, what's he supposed to do? He's brought Tommy Asu on for Ben White, like you said earlier, because you felt that he was a little bit tired. But actually, what else was there? Maybe Fabio Vieira could have come on. Maybe you try and go free at the back and try something to bring Martinelli and Saka deeper to try and transition a bit. I don't know. We haven't got many options at the moment. There's no centre forward on the bench. I mean, we're going in a title race and we've got one centre forward. There ain't one on the bench. That can't be Arsenal. We need to go and do something in January. So for me, mate, I kind of agreed a little bit with what Arteta said, actually, because I felt that the first few minutes that they did come and have a little bit of a go. And I think what Arteta was meaning was that they realised quite quickly we need to revert to playing how we've never played before if we want to get anything out of this game. He was annoyed with that, but actually you can't be, because teams have got to take points from people. So if that's how they've got to do it, that's how they've got to do it. I think I was a little bit disappointed because I've actually picked up Newcastle in terms of the way that they've played football, their attractiveness of style of play. They've been really good to watch. I really like some of their players, and I think their players very, very good. And, I have to pick up Eddie Howe, Tom, if I'm honest with you. I know a lot of people laughed when he went to Newcastle because they were expecting a Conte, Simeone, Unai Emery type manager, but I actually thought it was a good appointment, and it's proven to be so. And Eddie Howe, when he left Bournemouth, went and did something quite special, which was go and spend time with top elite managers like Klopp, like Simeone, Pep. And you can see all of those kind of little bits of play within their game. They're quite balanced. They've got a defensive side to them, as we saw. They've got a bite to them, as we saw. They can go in hard and tackle, like we saw. That's Simeone's style coming out. We've seen the Pep intensity. We've seen the Klopp intensity at times. So I think Eddie Howe deserves a hell of a lot of credit. And I think Newcastle are going to be fine this season. And when I say fine, I think they'll get top 4. I really do. I think they're going to be very hard to beat. I think they're going to definitely destroy teams when they need to and when they're able to. And Eddie Howe knows what he's doing. So fair play to Newcastle. I understand why Arteta's come out and said that. I thought it was a little bit over the top, but I actually don't mind it at the same way. I quite like the fact that he's animated on the line. I quite like the fact he's painful that we haven't won the game. But at the same time, I can understand why people think it's a little bit OTT with some of his comments and reaction. But listen, I'm sure we'll come into it. A couple of VAR decisions could have gone our way and it could have been a different game. If Eddie's got his shooting boots on and, it's a couple of millimetres here or there, it's 1-0 and we're all saying what a fantastic win. So it's fine margins in football, bruv. Really is.
Yeah, very fine margins. Very fine margins. Now, on a different device, I think we may have solved the problem, Wayne. How are we doing?
I actually don't know what went on there. The router dropped down as soon as you kicked it off, and my apologies, gents. That's something that never really happens. Funny, I got a new router in the post today because I'm getting new internet on the 10th.
Take it back, Wayne. Take it back.
For obvious reasons. That's exactly what was happening. He was actually screwing me because I got a new one in today. So my apologies for that. But
no, that's all right, mate.
That never happens. But we're back anyway. So where were we?
Yeah, just give us. Obviously, we had a chance to hear what you thought of the game overall. So briefly touch on that, and then to kind of add on top of that for the kind of next topic I was going to go on to. There was decisions that didn't necessarily go our way, and I want to hear all your thoughts on how the game was officiated as well.
Well, I suppose my thoughts on the game. It's been a good season from a mental health standpoint as an Arsenal fan, which has been great. Very, very. Pretty much stress-free the whole season, match after match. And that's pretty much yesterday one of the only matches that I've actually been physically angry and like proper screaming, shouting stuff. And I was just like, I couldn't get a hold of it because everything was the Newcastle, the antics of them was very frustrating, and it was kind of one of these ones where you were watching. You knew what was coming. You knew what was happening. You could see they were going there. They were doing exactly the same thing they did at Anfield where they delayed everything. But, old school tactics, like, don't get me wrong, Ramsdale does it. We've seen Jens Lehmann do it in the past. It's old stuff, like, bouncing the ball off the horde and letting it go back and running after it again, wasting another few seconds. But Newcastle really have kind of mastered that this year. And I think that's Eddie Howe's, when they go to the big guys, they like to do that. But that match yesterday, it was frustrating for that reason because I was just hoping that we could break through and get our credit, get our dues for beating the team, for playing that kind of way. And we didn't get there in the end, but there was a couple of small, as the hand said, football is a small margin game, and sometimes it's the smallest of margins that can get you over the line. And if it's a day where people are parking the bus, which Newcastle clearly did from minute one, you might rely on a piece of luck, either a piece of brilliance, or a piece of officiating that should have really gone our way. We didn't really get either of those or any of those. It's particularly the officiating, which I suppose we can burn straight into that, because I thought it was really three. The last one, I thought it was really three, one at a time. I thought the Nketiah one where he was absolutely manhandled.
Talked about a lot, that one. Yeah, Fabian Schär isn't on the back of him.
Yeah, he absolutely just rips him. Like Tyrone Mings did that to Saka, and we got a penalty for it. But yet the same thing happens in the exact same circumstances, and it doesn't happen.
Did we get that penalty? I feel like we didn't get that one on Saka and Mings. I feel like we didn't get it. But I know exactly what you're talking about when Mings threw him to the floor. I don't think we did get given it.
Oh, yes, you're right, because that's one of those ones where we put it into these complations.
But we should have been.
I was going to say odds with it being Saka that we didn't get it because he never gets it.
That one I thought was unbelievable that it never really got any attention. I was just like, but that's an absolute stonewall penalty. But anyway, we moved on. We kept pressing. Then the next one, stop. It's a joke. Like it's an actual joke. If you look at the replay from front side, his Fly Emirates goes from there over his shoulder, and his Fly Emirates is on his back.
It's like round here, like it's full on round. I don't know how he does it.
You know what? If in the old days, if the referee missed it and the linesman missed it, you'd say, "Oh Christ, man!" If that was seen. But the fact that they have Stockley Park or Stockley Lane, whatever you call it, looking at that and just went, "No, thanks, lads. That we'll move on from there," because that was shambolic. The third one, there's ordinary you can debate all day, but I mean, there was like only 2 weeks ago there was a goal given in the World Cup final for the exact same thing. I know it was a little bit further away, but I mean, the guy had his back to it. This one's different. His arm was out, shoulder was up, changed the direction of the ball. That could comfortably be given. We would like if I was an Arsenal, if I was any like a Liverpool fan, I'd be complaining because they didn't get the Gabriel one in the Emirates. Yeah. So I'd be willing to draw a line through that last one, even though it probably should have been given. But we should have really had the Gabriel one in the second half with Dan Bourne. I mean, that is as like the only word to describe it is scandalous. And officiating at the best league in the world is just so inconsistent because you don't know what's coming. There's decisions that are made that you think, you know, I can understand why they made that. It's a small little nick on the ball, or you got this, and you think, okay, that's what it's used for. But the most blatant and obvious ones that you can possibly see are completely overlooked, and it seems to be us that gets getting overlooked for them all the time. It's just,
I think they did that review of the VAR, and they deemed that Ødegaard challenge in the Man United game should have reversed. Stood. The goal should have stood. Yeah.
The thing with it all that gets me though is the inconsistency within it all in terms of PGMOL is Howard Webb's now come in mid-season to be the new boss for the refs, and yet he's sort of saying he wants minimal interference, maximum benefit, which was kind of the whole point of VAR and the big flagship sale for it before it kind of came in. But within that, then you're changing the level of officiating within the season, which isn't right, because that means a game that was officiated, for example, as against Liverpool earlier in the season, then you have a game later in the season, you're effectively playing with a different level. I know they like to talk about the bars, don't they, of interference. You can't change that mid-season. I get you can say, oh, right, next season it's going to be a lot less interference from VAR, but you can't change it midway through. I think on the incidents, I think the Nketiah one, whilst you look back at it at the time, I think he is backing in. He isn't particularly going anywhere with it. It's one of those, doesn't get given. If it was given against us, I'd be a bit annoyed about it, albeit he is all over it.
The thing against it is he's not in full control of the ball. I think that's probably the thing.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do think it's kind of one of those. But if it was given against us, I would be a bit aggrieved, which is always the way I try to look at it. The handball, I think if it's given, isn't overturned. It's just on field that's not given.
Agreed.
What I can't get away from though is the Gabriel one, because I think, and I actually think it should have been spotted on field, because the ball goes into the exact area he's going to win it. He was winning a lot of the aerial duels in there. He had that chance in the first half.
Yeah, that header went right wide. Yeah,
he was going to get to that. Where Pope punches it is probably just above shoulder level, which is it's not like he's got a full extension of his fist that's up in the air, and Gabriel wouldn't get there. He would have got to it. That's the one. I think Arteta's coming out and saying, oh, 2 scandalous decisions against us. I don't quite agree on that, as I say, but I do think of the 3. Yeah, I do think of the 3, we should have had one. But the other 2, I do think we all could debate until we're blue in the face. But the Gabriel one for me is quite a bit of a stonewaller.
But Guy, when you're talking about the levels of interference and contact, well, like we saw the inconsistency in that ruling and that
trail of thought, I suppose.
Yeah, for what the PGMOL are trying to implement this season is just like let's let a little bit flow. There was guys getting booked for the smallest little clip. He had 5 cards in the space of about 8 minutes.
Yeah, I think with that, I think the point's been made. No, I think he was trying to do the reverse. I think he was trying. I'll dish out an early yellow and say, right, that's the line, lads. Don't step over it. And then they all just kept doing it, and then it all adds up, and he's lost control. Yeah, no one would want to be a ref. I always like to sort of think we need to look at what we did.
They're picking and choosing their moments where they want to implement the let it flow. And I'm going to pull you and book you for the smallest little clip. So they're changing the whole thing throughout the games here.
I don't think the officiating was great, albeit I don't think that personally. I don't think that was the reason we didn't win the game. I don't think it was down to the officiating, albeit it wasn't great. And I think we sort of draw a line through that and move on.
Yeah, I've said a number of times that if Arsenal are going to win the title, we can't be looking back at individual games and blaming anything but ourselves. You know, we have to take the game away from the referee and come away with it. You know, we've done that against, the Liverpool game. We took that game away from the referee at times. And yes, we had some fortune with the Gabriel handball, arguably. But, there's been games this season where we've taken the referee's annoyance and inconsistency. I think Fulham at home, maybe when I wasn't particularly happy with the refereeing performance either, we took that away from the referee as well. So we need to do that again. Now, Dan, I named this show, if you can't win, don't lose, because I think that's probably the best way of looking at this one. I also think it's one of the reasons why maybe he didn't take off one of our midfielders for a Vieira. I think he realised that if I do that, I'm probably going to leave us too exposed. And whilst we can try and win it, we might end up losing this one. But in this game, Newcastle still did offer some things on the other end. And whilst we were kind of questioning what we were doing in attack, I thought Zinchenko in the second half was unbelievably good. And I thought that Gabriel had a really good game across the board as well. So it is, whilst we can kind of moan about the refs and the lack of finishing, it is good to know that we've got this foundation that we're building from that is still so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the three subs that were warming up were Elneny, Tierney and Tomiyasu for most of the game, which proves that he was not going attack-minded at all. He was more than happy for us to keep things going and balanced at the back. And you're right, Zinchenko and Gabriel towards the left-hand side of our pitch were absolutely sensational. I thought Granit Xhaka in the second half come into it really well. I thought Thomas Partey throughout the whole game was so. I just love Thomas Partey, mate. Everything about this guy is just ridiculous. He's absolutely pivotal. If we want to be going for a title, he just cannot get injured. He just categorically cannot. We cannot not have him in the team. It's a huge, huge drop-off. Probably the biggest drop-off for me in terms of positions. So I think that's key. But you're right, because you can't blame referees. You can blame referees for getting decisions wrong. You can't blame referees for not getting a result. That's the difference, because decisions people think cost you the game, when actually you shouldn't have to worry about decisions. You should have to forget it and carry on and win the game without having to have the referee on your side. So I find the Gabriel one very shocking. Like you said, I think Dan Burn and Gabriel, that's just for me is madness. I didn't think it was handball, really. I think if that's Tierney or Tomiyasu or Ben White, we're going mental, aren't we? I get that one. But for me, it was blatant. The referee lost control in the first half, in my opinion, by doing that. Just to anybody you fancied. Didn't understand that at all. I know what Guy's saying in terms of, trying to go the other way and say, look, I'm not mucking around today, mate. You're going to get booked. But it completely backfired to him, and he was just having to book everyone he felt. So it's very odd. But Newcastle, like I said, made it difficult, and I don't think that we had any answer to that. I think with Arteta, what you've mentioned about him not losing the game, I think is credit to what he's built over the last couple of seasons in terms of player personnel. I think if you was to look at our strength in depth, you don't really look at the back five and think, wow, what are we going to do here? With Tomiyasu and Ben White on the right-hand side, Saliba's been, for me, okay, dodgy in the last couple of games due to lack of football, in my opinion, but was good again last night. Gabriel, I thought, was immense. Zinchenko and Tierney have got that competition or at left back. So you don't look at any of those positions and go, oh dear, I'm not really confident there. So I think that you're right, Tom. He's built from the back and the foundations are there. And that's exactly what everybody said they felt we needed to do. And now we're trying to put the final pieces of the puzzle, we pray and hope, in January to get some firepower, because we really need it on the bench. And it's interesting what you say about Vieira and Marquinhos. I don't know. Perhaps I'll pose the question to you three guys. Does he trust these two yet? Does he feel that this was a game that they were ready for? Or was it just that he didn't want to change any of the top kind of four players because it was just a drop-off? Because he could have made a change. Ødegaard wasn't having a great game. Martinelli wasn't absolutely lightning for me. Saka was trying, but they were just 3 or 4 players on each, Saka and Martinelli. So there was an opportunity for change something. I just felt personally that he just didn't feel like that was the position to do. And I felt like he was going to weaken the squad by doing that. And that's an issue for me moving forward.
Yeah, I think Ødegaard's a bit like Ozil, I think, in the sense that, like, there's games where you probably should take him off, but he's capable of producing that one ball that wins you a game.
Absolutely. Now,
I think there's differences, of course, between Ødegaard and Ozil. I think in particular his energy, his pressing, his leadership on the field is so far and away above what Ozil provided. But, ability-wise, there is characteristically in the way they play with their left foot, there is a lot of similarities there, especially with the vision they both possess. But And I think that's probably the reason why he didn't take him off. Because I just think the form that Ødegaard's been in, he can just produce that pass that you think is going to win you a game. And he nearly did a couple of times. I think, the first 10 minutes of the game, we could have won it. We could have won the game in the first 10 minutes with the way that we played. And there was that Saka chance that we had that Pope made a good save. Arguably, he could have squared it across. And there was a couple of other chances in and around where we were really pressing. And if we got a goal in that first 10 minutes, like we did against Brighton, teams don't go to Brighton and score 4 goals, but you do if you score early. And I feel as though if we'd have done that in this game, a similar outcome probably would have happened. Now, the theme across everything that we've talked about, and the question you asked there about Vieira and should have Vieira come on, I think there's reasons why he didn't. I think it's because he just felt the players were on the pitch are the ones that probably were going to win us the game. But we all know that we are missing Jesus, we are missing Smith Rowe, who we hear hopefully will be starting the game against Oxford, which is really good news. And we're missing firepower. Now, we can't really talk about that without talking about transfers. And we're going to get onto that now, which I know everyone's favourite topic in the world is that. Guy, I'm going to start with you on this. The Mykhailo Mudryk story, you came and we spoke about this before we went on air. You said you're getting a bit nervous about this one now, and it's taken these twists and these turns. And Chelsea have obviously come in. They've had a meeting today with the Shakhtar director, Cerna. I believe he used to play for Shakhtar, didn't he? I think he's a right back.
Former Croatia. Yeah. Legendary international footballer who played at about 1 million international tours.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, he was in London today. By the way, just remind people, Arsenal also play in London, so there's a good chance that he's also in to have a chat with us at the same time. But he is obviously here to have a meeting with Todd Bowley. It's reported by the Telegraph. He's the one that's instigated this whole thing. Where's your head at with this in regards to the player, in regards to the figures we're starting to talk about, and when Arsenal might need to cut the cord?
I mean, all due respect, the figures and none of my business, if you know what I mean. If he comes in and he's the player who adds what we need to the squad, he's priceless. So if that's going to be the case, get the deal done. For me, it's a head and heart scenario. When we were first being rumoured with him in the summer and the compilations start going around of what he can do, and this is what I said to you before we started, for me, it looked like kind of a hybrid of the best of Alex Hleb and the best of Andrei Arshavin merged into one player as a regen. And I thought, whoa, two players who I really enjoyed watching at the Arsenal. It'd be brilliant to have him. And then it's felt as though as time's gone on, this is just going to inevitably be something that happens. They'll meet in the middle and the figures will be done. Whether or not Chelsea coming into the equation is a bit not too dissimilar, obviously, as what happened in the summer with Gabriel Jesus, a bit of a livener for us to actually get the deal done and realise what's ahead of us and what needs doing. Equally, I think Edu and Arteta, when they put big money down on players, their talent ID needs trusting. If they feel this is the guy, they'll push the button and they'll get the deal done. As I say, the figures will become irrelevant as to what happens. The problem we can't have is it's kind of a Nicola Pepe Mark II, which I just don't think under this administration and how we run now would happen. I hope we can still get it done, but equally, if the figures aren't what Arsenal are willing to pay and they don't want to do it, and Chelsea do, Chelsea are quite happy to jump in. Obviously, Rafinha, another one in the summer we were looking at, they jumped ahead, and then in came Barcelona. So let's wait and see what happens with it. But equally, if it doesn't, I'm sure we will have other players lined up, and it won't be a second-rate option. It will be another player who may even fit slightly differently and configure differently into the attack, but equally will be a player that Mikel Arteta and Edu will trust to bring in and come in and do it. But as I say, I do hope it is done because he does look electric, he does look exciting, but whether or not, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see. Wayne, on Mudryk, and you'll be able to tell me if I'm wrong on your view on this, but we've had a number of discussions about Mudryk over the last week or so. From your perspective, it sounds as though that the player's desire to move to Arsenal is the key thing here, and that Chelsea have got a hell of a job trying to convince him to change his mind. And at the same time, Arsenal feel confident that they can maybe bid less than Chelsea and end up getting the player because of how keen he is on moving to the club.
Well, he agreed personal terms about 3 months ago, so there's no question that he wants to come here. And look, we only have to look at that interview that he did with Zinchenko's wife. You can look at the end of it when somebody got the translation done and they put the subtitles up, and she's just like, hopefully we can have a conversation in the winter under different circumstances. And he turns around, the camera goes back to him, and he goes, as a Gooner, and she's like, Yeah. I was just like, this guy is absolutely screaming to sign for Arsenal. Probably because he's on €1,500 a week over in Ukraine and he's getting a nice little pay rise over here. But it's regardless of that, I do think that he's absolutely screaming to come here. From all accounts, I believe Zinchenko is in his ear as well, which is a massive advantage. Plus the fact that Chelsea are coming in late. They're going in with this scattergun approach, just trying to blow it out of the water. But like if you read through the lines, it's hard to believe that Chelsea are going to get him, or that we're second behind Chelsea. Even the Romano's tweets are saying that Chelsea are going to blitz them with £88 million. But yeah, they're still behind Arsenal. So how can Chelsea bidding £88 million be behind a club who's negotiating at around the 66 million mark? You know what I mean? If it was that, we'd be out of it if that was the case. But it's not. It's the player's going to make the call here.
I think the player really wants to come to us. The other thing that I find really bizarre is people are saying, "Oh, Arsenal are interested in where does he fit into the Arsenal team?" Well, yeah, granted that's a fair enough thing. Martinelli's been playing brilliantly off the left. For me, Smith Rowe's best position's off the left as well. But you look at Chelsea. Chelsea haven't even nailed down a formation under Graham Potter. They've got the likes of Sterling and Pulisic who both play off the left-hand side as well. There's no sort of guarantee that he's going to do that. And equally, this is a player who lit up in the Champions League group stages early on this season. And I'm sure part of a big part of the motivation for him is he wants to continue to play in the Champions League and be that kind of level player. Again, Chelsea are miles off qualifying for next year.
Exactly. 10th right now.
Exactly.
What's been kind of the narrative that's been pushed this evening from Matt Law is that it's Todd Bowley himself pushing this deal and not Potter, because Potter, by all accounts, is like Miguel Delaney had a good article out this evening where basically if you go deep into it, it makes perfect sense that they're giving him as much time as he wants, because he basically has about 4 managers worth of players there that are all for different systems. Yeah. And he has to come in with his own system that he doesn't have the players for. So they're just going to say, look, take your time, get what you need. If we can't get Mudryk, we go somewhere else. But like, by all accounts, they're looking to spend about 400-500 million by the end of January since last summer. Like they're looking at 120 on Enzo. They're looking at. They've already signed that guy. Yeah, they signed him. They're also rumored to be looking for. Yeah, they're also
Andre Santos.
Yeah, they're also looking at Marcus Thuram apparently.
Oh really?
So
it's mad.
How much have we got in the well here?
Yeah, I think what's mad about the whole Chelsea thing is that they've got a manager who, that if they invest time into, could turn them into something in the long term that, you know, continues to be competitive at the top. The similar way that Arsenal stuck with Arteta, a project manager, and starting to see the benefits of that. But the difference between the two clubs is that Chelsea have got kind of this owner that thinks he's playing FIFA career mode at this stage, and he's just like got this financial backing. He's just going to go, I'm going to buy this guy. Oh, Arsenal interested in this guy. You know what really pleased the fans is if we beat Arsenal to one of their targets. It feels very much that way rather than it being a measured approach. As you said, you've got Pulisic, you've got Sterling there as well.
Signing Nkunku.
And Nkunku's coming in. He can play off the left. Mount can play off the left as well.
Hudson-Odoi as well there.
Hudson-Odoi is coming back from loan at the end of the season, by Leverkusen, and I think he's done quite well since going to the Bundesliga, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, it's very strange. Dan, Mudryk, where's your head up with this one? Feel free to shoot your shot on this one.
Yeah, I'm not too worried because I feel from listen, I can only go by what you're told, can't you, and what you hear. He's got his heart set on Arsenal. It looks to me as if it's going to happen. My only concern would be that Shakhtar Donetsk don't accept anything that's over a certain amount. If Arsenal really want him, they're going to have to pay for him, and it is going to have to be Pepe money from what we're being told. So Chelsea will do that. They'll say, you know, he's 75, here you go, have 100. Right, because this bloke's nuts, by the way. This Todd Bowley guy is mental. like Enzo, go on then. We'll just, what's his release clause? Oh, it's about 100, and just do it. Just do it. What do you mean, just do it? Hang on, it's 120. Yeah, just get him. All right, okay.
Apparently,
right, let's get him.
As well. Apparently, he just chucks money around.
Mad, absolute mad, mate. So you can't compete with that. You know, Arsenal can't compete with that. We're not crazy. And financial fair play is, as Man City found out, is basically like getting a parking fine. So you just do it, just pay the fine. So there's no point, is there? It doesn't work. It's absolutely embarrassing, if I'm honest with you, the financial fair play. And I would encourage Arsenal to do it now that I've seen what what the fine is, you might as well just do it, mightn't you? And you know what I mean? It's mad. You might as well just
you
go
get away with
400
it.
million.
City,
400 million. Oh yeah. Oh, we're going to give you a £9 million fine. Do you want it in pound coins or fivers? What do you want it in? It's absolutely embarrassing. It really is shocking. So for me, I think we need to be serious about how far we're going to go with this and accept that we ain't going to get this guy for 50 million. He might cost 70 or 80. And if you really want the guy, you're going to have to stump it up because Chelsea will. And then people will go, yeah, but Mudryk won't want Chelsea. Will he not? £300,000 a week. Oh, go on then. I might as well go. That's what'll happen. He will. He's not going to sit there and go, no. So, you know.
People saying that Zinchenko's a pull. I mean, he can still catch up with Zinchenko in London if he signs for Chelsea.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, I don't sit there
Real
and say
Madrid
that,
just paid 60 million for a 15-year-old. So you're right, Dan. We just need to stump it up.
Listen.
This is a different market.
What I get frustrated with, and Tom knows my thoughts on this, I get frustrated with the Arsenal accountants in the fan base. I really do. It really frustrates the hell out of me. We should not be paying that much money. We're the Arsenal. We do not pay that much. I'll stop. We want to go and win a title, yeah? Just go and pay the 20 million, whatever it is, for João Felix. If that's
I disagree with you there, but carry on.
Go and buy it, yeah. Go and spend the money. If it's 80 million for Mudryk, go and spend it. We're going to spend 100 million and it wins us the title. I'm not going to sit there and go, I wish we would have won the title without spending that. I'm going to say, we won a title. Let's go and do it. I'm not an accountant. Like Aubameyang, we leave Aubameyang and everyone's going, oh, £7 million saved. I couldn't give a damn. I've probably spent that as an Arsenal fan. I don't care about how much money we're spending. I am not an accountant. I don't care how much money Arsenal spend. I know very little about how much money we got. So I'm not going to sit there and say, Arsenal can't afford 20 million because I'll be lying to you because they might be able to. So I don't understand that logic personally. You go and spend what you think is going to win you a title. And if 20 million for João Felix and 80 million for Mudryk is going to win us a title, I'll be pissed off if we didn't go and do it. And we saved that 100 million to what? Try and compete for fourth. Let's go and win the title, man. It's there. Go and do it.
I think the idea is that they're using or going to look to use some of the summer budget banking on the fact that we can get a top four finish and get us Champions League football, which makes perfect sense. So the Crompies are quite willing to put their hands in their pockets. I reckon it's going to be done. And to be honest with you, if you get the likes of a Mudryk in and keep him away from Chelsea, that's another win. Because if they get him and we don't, you know, and they start adding and get a player like that in, like that guy will rip you apart like on the break. You know, if he gets his way with you in the Emirates or wherever, or the bridge or wherever. But it's a player that I don't want to lose to them for sure, or to anybody really. You know.
I think that when you look at the game when we played Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, for me that was the big turning point. That was the moment where Arsenal went above Chelsea. That was not just in the league. I'm talking about in the context of the two teams. Yeah. We are ahead of Chelsea. We are now a more attractive prospect than Chelsea, who are just a chaotic mess at this stage that are going to have to buy their way with wages through to players if they're going to compete with clubs like Arsenal and Man City.
You have to keep your foot on the throat, Tom.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you are, and this is another moment in the season against, say, a club like Chelsea where we can show that we have that pulling power, and that if Mudryk wants to join Arsenal,
flex a bit, yeah.
What would be even more impressive is if we do sign him for, say, less money than what Chelsea are willing to offer. That in itself is a massive indication that, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, Barcelona did it with Rafinha, and I think it was Miguel Delaney that said that there's a lot of similarities between this and the Rafinha deal in the summer. You know, Chelsea wanted Rafinha. They were willing to pay whatever Leeds wanted for Rafinha. He wanted Barca. Barca didn't really have the money and had to wait, and gradually found their way to a deal that was still, I think, less than what Chelsea ultimately offered in the first place and what they were willing to pay. And they got it because he wanted to go to Barcelona. It wasn't going to be earning as much at Barca as he would have done moving to Chelsea, but he wanted that. And we have also got to now bank and hope that similar thing happens with Mudryk. I think the difference between
best of 4 weeks of the window as well, though, isn't there? There's best part of 4 weeks of the window left, where if Mudryk wants this deal, he needs to play his part too. We've seen what he's been doing on Instagram as well. But sit tight. No one's going to force you to sign that contract with Chelsea, and it will still be there on the table come the 31st of January. If by the 31st of January all talks are broken down, and even then there's no sort of thing to say, Arsenal won't just say, right, let's do this in the summer. Shakhtar still want to get Champions League qualification, and the best chance they're going to have of doing that is with Mudryk in their side. So I think it will get done this month, and I think he probably will come to Arsenal. But personally, I don't see actually there's a definitive outcome of it's either us now or definitely Chelsea. If he really has his heart set on Arsenal, like we're all led to believe, he could play the long game.
It'll be intriguing if that happens, because I don't think he'll submit a transfer request. I think there's a little bit of because of the ultimate situation with Ukraine. Yeah. I don't think that Mudryk's going to want to rock the boat too much there and come across like a bad guy, which is pushing it already with some of the things he's doing on Instagram and stuff like that. It does make that a little bit strange. To finish the show, because I probably want to get a chance to catch up with you guys before the transfer window closes, I want to kind of get a prediction from you guys about what you think will happen between now and January, or I say January 31st, more so now and February 1st. Dan, I'll start with you. What is your... I'll do it this way. What is your desire for this window, and what do you think is going to happen?
My desire, and I'm going to be realistic about this, I'm not going to throw Jude Bellingham's and Declan Rice's at you. But what I will say is I think realistically, Mudryk is an option. I think João Felix, from what I hear, is an option. And I also believe that there would be an Ibrahim Sangare type midfielder needed to come in to provide some competition for Thomas Partey. What do I think is going to happen? Yeah, I like that guy. What do I think is going to happen? I think it will be Mudryk. And I think it will be maybe one more midfielder, but I don't know who. I don't think we'll get a forward. I don't think we'll go for Felix. I just don't see that. I think Man United will probably get him because they're crazy. They'll pay, it's 21 million. We'll give you 25. You'll put you on 500k a week as well. They're nuts, mate. They're mental. They're absolutely mental, mate. Man United are another team that just pay unbelievable money for players. So I expect Felix will probably go there for the money. But I think Mudryk will come Arsenal, but I think we'll get another midfielder. It could be Tielemans, it could be Danilo, it could be someone we're not even linked with yet. But I think that he will look at strengthening those two positions this window.
Guy.
Yeah, I think two. I think there'll be maybe an outgoing or two. We'll have to wait and see on that as well. But yeah, I think Mudryk to supplement the forward line. Smith Rowe obviously comes back as well. That adds a body. I'm not going to say he's one of mine, like a new signing type players, but he does come back into the fold, having hardly featured this season. And then for me, and it is the desire, but I do really hope it happens, we need another centre midfielder. We've gone through the last three windows of leaving ourselves a midfielder short. Nick Xhaka has been brilliant in that left-hand side role, but personally for me, we need someone maybe with a bit more penalty box instinct in and around that area. He's obviously got weighed in with a couple of goals and he's had big contributions. But as we started looking back at the Newcastle game, that chance where he's reaching, he's not on his toes in and around the box. Got someone who's more used to being in and around those positions, I'd like to think would have been quicker to react and may well provide a bit more of a thrust and threat. I would stay away from Tielemans and stay away from João Felix. I don't have a name for you, but yeah, for me, it wouldn't be a Partey replacement option. I would go big in the summer on one of those type players. But yeah, I'd like to think a left side central midfield option alongside Mihailo Mudryk.
And Wayne,
I honestly believe that Arteta has a long-term vision for Xhaka's replacement, and it's Fabio Vieira long-term. I don't think he's going to spend that type of money on him. He's a young lad. I think Arteta is banking on the fact that, okay, we do have a small squad, but he's banking on the fact that he can get through the season. We've got this far with Partey, touch wood, but I think he's banking on the fact that Xhaka, by all accounts, rarely misses games with injuries, if ever. And he's just going to cling on to him as a kind of and just let Fabio Vieira kind of develop by training with us week in, week out. But if I was to put my money on it, it's Mudryk for sure. I'm 100% convinced he's going to be an Arsenal player by the end of the window.
Just clipping that up.
And I'm not going to lie. Like Eddie, I like. I've warmed to him over a long period. It took a long period of time for me to warm to him, but he came back. He worked hard, and you have to credit somebody who gets stuck in. But his work rate off the ball is what just doesn't quite sit with me. Like, he scored a couple of goals, but like there was a couple of times last night where he just wasn't quite pressing, and I think we might look at another forward, because what happens if Eddie pulls a hamstring, he's out for 7 weeks? We have nobody. So I think
that's true. But in terms of what is being built longer term, the thing for me with a forward not coming in is we've got Balogun who's scoring goals for fun in League One.
That's why I think a loan makes sense.
Unless we cash in on him in the summer and actually we've already brought someone in. But then again, we're reducing his market value if there's no place for him.
He was at Colney today, by the way, Balogun.
Right.
If we could get a loan deal in the right circumstances for Felix, that with no obligation but with an option, and he was a success.
Yeah, but that option's going to be 100 million. You know that, right?
I think that's a realistic part of that deal. I think the sticking point is I don't think they want a mandatory obligation to buy it. I think that the sticking point is how much of a loan fee they want. They want what, 15 million for a loan fee and cover his £6 million wages.
Fee,
well,
cover his £6 million wages.
Covers the fee plus wages for one season, but we're only getting a half season over.
No, it's for half the season. They want 15 million and 6 to cover his wages. They want 21 million overall. It's dead in the water at that. If they come down to 6 and 6 and it's a £12 million package, maybe someone's twisting your arm. Not for me if we've already got Mudryk, because Felix is just another one of those type flair players.
Again, the beauty of the Felix one is that he's another player who desperately wants to get out.
Yeah.
There's an exodus going on at Atletico Madrid, and he's just the next one out.
There as well. The talent is there with
he's
Felix.
A fabulous player.
You don't know if he's going to suit the league.
They're playing on Simeone, Dan. They want to get out, wouldn't they? They're playing under him.
It just wouldn't surprise me if we got the. It wouldn't surprise me if we got the Mudryk deal done and we somehow negotiated something for Felix, because Tielemans, by all accounts, and from last summer has been eyeballed for next summer for nothing. So I mean, I reckon we'll be having those conversations with him right now as we speak, getting it ready. You know what I mean, in the background with his people. But I think he would definitely be looking at coming in the summer. There's your Xhaka competition / replacement, or
agreed.
Whatever you need there, with a Vieira in on top for a year row. But that's building the proper amount of depth you need. As I said, we're ahead of schedule here. We have to remember that we're ahead of schedule. So what we're achieving now is it's really an overachievement for the squad we have. We shouldn't be where we are, but we are, and we still probably have to stick to a financial plan to get ourselves to where Arteta and Edu want us to be next year. We'll probably be more competitive next year, but it'll be more sustainable, and there'll be much more depth to our squad next year, and because we've done it to a plan, and we've done it smart. But this year we just have to try and take advantage of whatever we can to get ourselves over the line.
It's the balance, and that's where my, Dan, when you're talking about the Arsenal accountant head, that's where mine comes into it a little bit, because I go, well, you're right in saying if we spend 100 million, but we get, and we win the title, great. But what if we spend 100 million, don't win the title, and that then affects the next summer and the winter after that?
You need Stan Kroenke, mate. That's when you need Stan Kroenke, and that's listen, like that's where you need your owner to step up and go, well, hang on a minute, is it what do you need? 100 million? All right, I'll let you have that for next year as well. That's what he needs to do. He owes us, man. This isn't all lovely, Stan. Where
they don't,
he needs to own us. Come on, man.
They take loans out against.
There's a report the other day about a 70 million loan or something being discussed.
If we're in a position, Tom, this is a serious thing here. If we're in a position where we, by taking a risk of spending 100 million in January, is going to mess up our summer, then maybe we're in as big a club as I thought we were, because we should have billionaire owners that are going to allow us to try and take that risk to win a title. This is a title. This isn't trying to squeeze in the top 4, by the way. This is a title. Come on, man. Let's go do it. Let's go do it. Come on, Kroenke.
I think that's a good way to
get your money out. Get your money out, Wenger.
We'll see what happens between now and the end of the window. We'll, of course, be bringing you content all across that, and you'll be able to catch as well Dan producing content. Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show over on the 12th Man podcast and the Judges TV. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. Much appreciated.
Welcome. Listen, man, thank you so much, mate. And always a pleasure coming on Gooner Talk TV. And make sure you like and subscribe, people, because what Tom's doing is superb. Thanks for having me on, man.
Checks in the post. Thank you very much. Much appreciated it. Guy, always a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend. It's been too long, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Yeah, pleasure as always. And thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. And lastly, Wayne, once again, it's been even longer. Thank you so much for jumping back on. We sorted out the internet eventually, and hopefully we can get a full show in next time without any interruptions.
I need to get Stan Kroenke to pay my internet bill there. You know, that'll be the one that'll get us over the line here. You know, but yeah, great meeting you guys, Guy and Dan. Tell Lee Judges I said hello. And Tom, we won't leave it this long the next time for sure. We get it moving.
Yeah, I was saying to Guy and Dan earlier that you were one of the TGT OGs back in the day. You know,
episode 1 maybe or 2.
Well, I think we were on episode 1 with Craig on the first ever show. Yeah, with Mems as well potentially. Yeah, who would have thought? You know, who would have thought from that moment to now? Speaking of which, thank you so much, everyone that's helped subscribe. We've just hit 42,000, so thank you so much for that as well. Means a lot. But yes, you can follow Dan on Twitter at DanArsenal87. You can follow Wayne at RemontardaVV, although that might change when this one gets suspended.
No, it's good. We're back. We're okay.
We're good? Okay. And you can follow Guy on Twitter at GuyClark05, all producing great stuff either on socials or on their own channels as well. I'm waiting for Wayne to start up his own show. I'm looking forward to that. Maybe you'll get that in. Never. Amongst the golf. Can't fit it in. Just can't.
No, probably right, yeah. Amongst the golf day. I'd start a golf podcast in a hurry.
Yeah, no, I'd listen. I'm getting into it now. I'm trying. Although I've got to send you a funny photo because I slipped on the first green the other day and I bought this whole new golf jacket, mud all up the arm. Took 2 washes to get it all out. It was brilliant.
Not the time of year to be falling, Tom.
No, it's not. Yeah, it was 28th of December. It weren't pretty. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for listening. Do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We'll also be bringing you the next episode of the Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat podcast with Sophie, Raj and Owen, which we're recording later on tonight. We'll be talking a little bit more about Gabriel Jesus' return after he's now ditched the crutches. So hopefully a positive update on that. And Smith Rowe, of course, returning against Oxford too. See you soon. Have a great evening. And as always, up the Arsenal.